write my novel, right? Because if I see it on the big screen, then I know I'm going to get a check, and so on, right? So I'm not going to write that down, but the right to protection of scientific, literary, and artistic production, right? We are trying to, in this phase, in this generation, in the second generation, address the socio-cultural, right? Socio-cultural more in terms of sort of artistic protection, scientific protection, economic, obviously, the right to work, the right to be free from unemployment. And we recognize that it's more of a freedom to, not entirely, but it's more conceptualized in terms of freedom to rather than freedom from. Okay? E. With, this is E on page 4, this is 2E. With free market capitalism in ascendancy under the banner of globalization, right? So with free market capitalism in ascendancy under the banner of globalization, as it rises under the banner of globalization at the turn of the 21st century, it is not likely that these rights will come of age anytime soon, right? So the point that's being said there, as globalization and free market capitalism, the free market mentality rises, right? And I talked about the sort of redistribution of global wealth from developed ED nations to developing nations. This is basically what's happening, right? This isn't necessarily just economic, but it's the distribution of wealth. What's important to recognize is that the socio-economically elite, their distribution of wealth hasn't really changed. The redistribution of wealth really happens in terms of the middle class, right? Time magazine a couple months back had, is the white man beached or something like that. I didn't particularly like the cover. It was, for me, a bit controversial. But they had a white businessman laying down, and the word white in that sense, but I don't mean that as an insult. This is the name of, this is how it was shown in the Time magazine ad. You had like a white guy in a business suit face down on the beach with his briefcase, and basically the image was trying to say that your jobs, right, the supply, your job, we know that there's a demand. We know that people in the United States contemporarily, right now, and around the globe right now, are desperately looking for employment. The point is that sort of the manufacturing production of labor has all been outsourced. So insofar as it's been outsourced, the guy who used to manage those firms, or the guy who used to work in those firms, especially with automation of sort of assembly line work, all of that has been outsourced or automized. And what happens? Well, he's beached. But it's not just the white guy that's beached. We're all beached. Middle class is beached, right? So in a sense, Time magazine, shame on you for representing the middle class as the white guy. But, you know, no offense, we understand that's how it goes. So that's that. With free market capitalism in ascendancy under the banner of globalization at the turn of the 21st century, it is not likely that these rights will come of age anytime soon. And we see sort of the problem there. And now, the last phase of, or the last generation of human rights. This is solidarity rights, right? Fraternité. Solidarity rights, right? We're talking about fraternité. Okay, so we have here first generation, second generation, third generation. Right? First generation, second generation, third generation. Alright. Focus on collective rights of a global community. This is super important, right? Hence the fraternité. Collective. Emphasis, big emphasis on collective rights. Right? Focus on collective rights of a global community. Now, conceptually, let's just run through this really quick so that we understand, because it's a very critical conception, I think. I'm not going to do it historically because I'm a theorist. First generation rights. Freedom from the assaults, the attack. Arbitrary arrest, torture, discrimination. The government assumes, the political establishment assumes the duty, the obligation to protect me from, it does its job. Insofar as I'm shielded, I turn my attention to socioeconomic, sociocultural affairs. Making money. Well, insofar as making money, I recognize that there's a disparity between those who create the positions and those who work. Insofar as that disparity is there, I'm saying, hey, I need a more socialized distribution of the wealth. Unions come into place, I have a freedom to employment. I have a freedom to protect me from unemployment, and so on. Insofar as I've recognized that, socially, those who create new products, those who innovate and have new ideas within the middle class, they need to be protected as well, right? So I have a freedom to the protection of my intellectual property rights and ... Second generation. Insofar as that's been satisfied, I recognize that the reason why I'm making products, the reason why I'm asking for a more equalized distribution of wealth is because I immediately recognize that I don't exist in a vacuum. That all of this is articulated in terms of the interconnectedness of every human being and every institution of business and every socioeconomic and sociocultural institution is intimately tied. So that the reason why I might not be unemployed now is specifically because the beach white middle class, I'll just use the beach middle class, that labor, that opportunity has been outsourced. Insofar as it's been outsourced, it's not that I'm going to rage against globalization. You're fighting a lost battle. Globalization is not going to die. It's not going to be defeated. There's no way to defeat it. You accept the model, or if you're really smart, you put yourself in a room for, I don't know, maybe 15 years and you come up with a new economic model. I've entertained the thought. Right now, capitalism is the best model, hands down, at least, and it's really the only functioning governing model. If you wanted to do a new model, you know, good luck to you. It's a lot of difficult conceptualization, but what you recognize is that we're talking about collective now. I have to recognize that, okay, I need to see myself and what I do in terms of a global recognition. Now, in the process of sort of lecturing, I'm recognizing now that what I'm doing is inherently global, right? There is a fraternity that is built between you and me, right? Wherever you are and me here in Florida, right? So there's a direct connection between you and I, and there's tens of thousands of miles that connect us. Now, the point is, we need, it's more we now, right? There's a lot of I here, right? There's a lot of I here, there's a lot of we here. We now need to understand, and we need, as a group, to protect our rights. And insofar as we attempt to do that, there needs to be protection set in place. So the first thing is, focus on collective and global rights. 3A, quote, associated with the rise and decline of the nation state. Okay, this is obviously associated with the political, the nation state and the political establishment, status quo, is going to fluctuate as there's going to be variations. Remember, we said we can talk about natural law theory, or we can talk about sort of and natural rights in terms of sort of its natural sense, universal, generalizable, and Bentham and Mill critique this. And we can talk about rights in terms of a more positive sense, rights in terms of positive rights, and that has to do precisely with convention. With respect to utility and convention, we recognize that the political establishment is the institution of convention, right? That institution is going to change. That institution is perpetually going to be in a state of identifying itself, right? So that it changes as we, the people, change. It is typified, this concept, and I'll give you a good example in a second. This is typified in Article 28 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, associated with, quote, revolution of rising expectations. That is, 1, the global redistribution of power and wealth. There is an expectation, not in the developed ED. Now we're really going to get deep, and I'll talk slow so that I don't go too fast on this. But there's going to be an expectation within the developed world that, hey, we in the developed world, the first world